Hey everybody, Goosebumps for Dummies here, and today we are going to be discussing something very unpopular on my channel, and that is Goosebumps audiobooks. This is something I rarely ever touch upon. In fact, I don't think I really have outside of a surface level, or just in an unboxing video, because I've unboxed a few of these before in the past. Now, Goosebumps audiobooks are prolific. There are a ton of them. We have gotten, of course, the 7 from the 90s, at least here in the States. I know there were others outside of the United States. We have gotten the classic Goosebumps audiobooks for the more newer books, and we're still getting them to this day for the new House Shivers books, and just getting them for even books released in the past. Like, I believe got more Horrorland audiobooks this year, which is crazy. These things are of endless supply. There are a ton of Goosebumps audiobooks out there, and I don't know if I'll even get to listen to all of them before I die, because there's so many, believe me. But I'd like to finally touch upon them and not discuss the contents. We're actually just discussing what if we got more of these things in the 90s, which is strange, because we very well could have, except I think the only reason we didn't is because of Goosebumps' declining success. But if Goosebumps were to have been thriving as much as it was back in 1995, in 1998 instead, then I think we would have definitely gotten more of these, because they actually ended in 1997 with this one. And a year beforehand, we got a wave of 6, which were Terror Tower, Revenge of the Lawn Gnomes, Shocker on Shock Street, Haunted Mass 2, Attack the Mutants, and Deep Trouble, if I'm not forgetting any. So, with them ending in 1997, at least here in the States, I know there was a release of Camp Nightmare in the UK, and possibly other things, or be in the UK or somewhere else. I don't know when those came out, though. I was wondering maybe if we got more and what have been like, or rather what would have been our lineup. For the purpose of this video, I kind of have to set a time frame because the audiobooks that we did get in the 90s kind of followed a pattern, and that was the middle of the OG series era. That's when these things kind of released, was like just after, or maybe a little bit before, Dummy 2, which is the exact middle of the OG series. So, with that in mind, when would have this lineup come out? I believe probably in the first half of 1998. If Goosebumps was still at its peak. So with that time frame, I was able to kind of merge up an idea of what we could have saw. And I have selected technically 8 books here, because there's also the potential of a just out of no release in 1999, as we got in 1997 with Welcome to Deadhouse. Yeah, so without further ado, and without further delay, we've been going for almost 3 minutes already. Let's talk about it. I think the most obvious thing we would have gotten is the Series 2000 audiobook, and it is indeed the one on the thumbnail, Cry of the Cat. Probably the only one because of its more recency, but I think this would have been a really good release just to help promote Series 2000 as a whole. It would have been either this one or Dummy 2, or maybe even both, but I think this one would have been more likely just because, well, it's the first book. So yeah, Cry of the Cat just would have made sense to help promote the new series. Coming off, though, of the original Goosebumps series, I think we would have gotten a handful from the very late OG series. I'm talking book 50 and up, so bear with me here. These would have been dope. I am starting off with Haunted School. I know, biasy. I love this book, but I think this would have been pretty likely because it is, I believe, my latest pick on here next to one coming up. And I don't think they would have done Monsterwood 4, let alone I Live in Your Basement. Wasn't very well, picked up. Of course, we're talking if Goosebumps was still at its height, absolute peak back then, but I think this would have been just a bit more of a popular story for its, well, very good story. Alongside another one, which is obvious. Werewolf Skin. That is that other one. This one would have easily been adapted into an audiobook format had Goosebumps still been at its peak. I think this would have been a really popular story, as well as a Halloween story, and since they did a Halloween story in Wave 1, maybe multiple, I don't think they did 2, it would have made a lot of sense to actually do this, just because following a trend, Halloween book per wave. Next up, this one is only because they did the first one, Deep Trouble 2. I don't know if this would have sold well if it was still, again, at the height. Goosebumps hadn't been dying down in the, late OG series era and Series 2000. But nonetheless, I think this would have been picked solely because they did the first audiobook. Now, this one I almost hinted at earlier, and that is Camp Nightmare. This is an oddity, and that's not to say the first wave didn't do some oddities, because they actually went back into Deep Trouble of all things. I don't know if that's because that book sold particularly well, or if that's because it was popular at that time. Maybe because it was a summer release for the audiobooks, I don't know. But either way, Camp Nightmare, I think, would have made its debut finally because, and only because, that it was released in the UK. That's really it. And because I know this one sold extremely well, it's been reprinted like 5 times, if you include original print, Yes, it's blah day, everyone. Retro 10 prints, classic reprints, 2003 prints, and I believe Target edition prints, so 5 times. Crazy. This is definitely a bestseller, so clearly this one had an impact, so I would not be surprised if this one had received an audiobook in the 90s. Sorry for my sticker there. And yeah, that's my idea for the first wave that we have gotten in the 90s. I'm not doing any waves past that, but I will include the Oddity release that kind of was this wave's version of Dead House, or at least a year after. And the only reason I picked these 2 books is because they come in a set, you might already know, and it's to help Thrive Series 2000 forward, and because there's not really anything else spectacle-like to pick, because obviously the series starters have both been picked, which are Cry of the Cat and Dead House. I'm going to go brain fart there. And if they want to do another series starter, it would have to have been Tales of the Goosebumps, which would have worked, but I don't think as well as this. Yeah, Body Squeezers Part 1 and 2. I think it would have sold absolute bank if it were to hit the store shelves. It's because it would revive this little duology. It also could have been really advertised, obviously. I know they were hyping this thing up in the, the adverts in the back of the book, because this was the first duology. But if they did this and released it maybe as a bigger audiobook thing, with 2 cassettes maybe, or maybe they did it as a, two separate releases thing, it could have sold really well. But yeah, I just feel like, of all things, this has been the most, spectacle pick to pick for a standalone release. And yeah, those are my picks for a potential continuation of the 90s audiobook era had we gotten more. And that actually adds up to 14, so we did another 7 there. If you don't count the Body Squeezers ones as separate stories, because they're basically one story. They don't even have a time gap in between. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Tell me what you think of my picks down below. Maybe leave your own, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.